welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered. I am just tickled pink today because we have Michelle Irving with us. And Michelle is a true visionary in the world of career and chronic conditions. Born out of her own diagnoses, Michelle has built two companies that are redefining how organizations and people think about ambition, capacity, and chronic conditions. She's developed really powerful programs and frameworks that have given so many people a genuinely new way to pursue their careers in alignment with their bodies. And I'm excited today to have Michelle because we're not just talking about her work, we're actually talking about the entire chronic economy, which is a term that Michelle coined, and we're talking about all of it. So let's get into it. Michelle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Lilly. And our relationship is one of the absolute delights of running a chronic business for me. And that to me is everything, because running a business can be isolating. Running a chronic business, it's not just that it's isolating because you're at home and then you're napping and you're resting and you're managing treatment, but it's also the fact that very few people are in the field. And I know that that's something we're both passionate about. And I know we're going to talk about that to also encourage people to see what their path might be in the chronic economy.
Before we jump into that, though, just for folks who maybe don't know you, I'd love for you to give us your chronic elevator pitch, if you will, and tell us a little bit more about what brought you to this point in your journey.
So I was diagnosed at 35 with a life-threatening autoimmune condition. I'm now 55. So there's 20 years of navigating the health system, but also my career. And what that did is I had to basically work out how to have that career without stifling what was true, without damaging my body in the process. And it's also the way in which I wanted to be in that career. A lot of us lose our confidence, and I made the decision I was going to find my path with my power through it. And so what I did out of that was people started to ask me, I hear you shared that you have a chronic illness. How did you get this and that at work? I never set out to have a chronic business. I already had a side hustle, which was philosophy in the pub. And then it just naturally came that it was clear it was going to be a business. So when I first built the business, I designed an 8-month program. I did no market research. I joined an online business course. And what that did was teach me how to run an online business that I thought I would never use. And then COVID hit. And so I'd been building my own website since 2004. For the first time, I actually did branding. And then I just launched a program. And here's the trick. It's a little longer than an elevator pitch. I kept getting this nudge to reach out to a couple of women who were big in Australia, a very well-known national journalist who had written her memoir, Unseen, and a global entrepreneur, Samantha Wills, who had just released her book of Golden Dust, which includes her endometriosis journey. So I got this nudge on social, like internally, just text them on social media. I'm like, are you kidding? She's got 256,000 followers. I've got maybe 150 friends. Like, this is ridiculous. And so it just kept going. And so I made this deal where I said, fine, I will text them. Only if they say yes will I then interview them, because nobody's going to say yes. Both of them said yes. So then I made up this launch rocket called the Pajama Interviews, which was a 10-day summit with 10 guests. Everybody said yes because everybody was at home and nobody had any way to talk about their work in the world as well. And that launched an 8-month program, which was all about life and chronic illness. But the point of it really for everybody listening is that nudge that is sitting in you, which is often the one you're really bitching at and don't want to do, sooner or later, it is worth following that North Star.
Such a good story. It's such a great reminder because we all kind of get that imposter syndrome. And look at what that started for you. That was such a launch pad for where you are now.
Everything, all because it was just so insistent in my head. I literally said, fine. Like I was irritated because it was scary. It's like, this is ridiculous. But that summit drew lots and lots of women, lots of collaborators. And it also started that I launched a business that had a whole USA market open to me. I'm more a person who, as stuff happens, I strategize around the thing that's revealing itself and working with that clarity rather than trying to shape into it. A lot of people, we end up in the careers that we didn't think we started. But what you want to do is if you're in a career which is soul destroying for you, there are those desires to follow that and then work the path out as you go.
You're such a shining example of that, Michelle. And I love the encouragement and the nudge for people to go with what's in their gut and what their heart is telling them to do. Amazing to hear your backstory. I want to dig in now. I've mentioned the term chronic economy a few times. It is a term that you've coined. How do you define it? And how do you see it as having come into being?
So the chronic economy is really, most of us globally, individually, see that conversation about sick people, and it's all about the burden of disease. And now there's this whole stuff in the business literature about the burden of chronic conditions in workplaces. Nothing irritated me more than seeing that conversation. It always has. And what's happening in that is just ignorant about what the actual chronic economy is. Let's say each of us on minimum, no matter what sort of country you're in, you're spending minimum $2,500 a year on support, therapy, potentially wellness treatments. And that's a very conservative estimate. I know that in the US, like it's much more, and that's complementary. It's what you're doing trying to keep yourself stable while navigating the medication and those treatments. So if we take that tiny number, $2,500, in the US per annum, that's a $125 billion economy. And in Australia, that's $6.7 billion. If you think about the women's health market, that's a $49 billion economy in 2024. And it's really starting to gather. We're seeing so many more conversations about women's health and research, but also in the apps and the way in which it's getting serviced. I'm going to be so conservative and say 30% of that market is women with chronic conditions. We know that's probably 55 to 60%. Those are some of the phases about what I would say is the servicing industry. Then I want you to think about workforce and how many people are working, living with a chronic condition. So it's absolutely, from the data we've cut, conservatively, 30% of employees are living with at least one chronic long-term health condition. And there's a whole lot of discussion about the disability sector, and a lot of people living with a chronic condition won't identify as having a disability. There's nothing like the disability sector has done amazing things, and we should absolutely use the benefits of all of that conversation. And there's something about the chronic illness capacity that can be different to disability or can merge together, whatever works for you. And then we think about if only 5% of those employees accessed tailored professional development for living with a chronic condition and managing a career, that's a $100 billion market in the US and a $1.6 billion in Australia. So the reason that I'm sharing that is to give everybody an insight as to what this actually looks like. And that is without retail and pharma and also the contribution that we all make at work. And 30% of your workforce living with a chronic condition is contributing to your company's and organizational outcomes. That's from the financial view to show everybody how big this is, and we are a collective. And we're just getting started as a collective. The phases of the chronic economy look like this. It started with some disclosure. COVID amped up the social media conversation, and now you've got chronic accounts popping up. And that's certainly where I popped in. You've also got the memoirs and the podcast popping up. So this is about story and connection, phase one. The second phase is the phase that you or I in around chronic entrepreneurship. So this is Chronic Boss Collective. This is Career and Chronic, My Business for Individuals. This is Nitika Chopra's Chronicon, which she started. Like all of that is now services dedicated to our own lived experience community. Phase three of the chronic economy is what we're now in the infancy of, and that is systems and infrastructure. So that's where the corporate work and the company I created, Chronic Illness at Work, is where we go into corporates around awareness sessions and training. Why is that a sector? Well, those 30% of people living with chronic conditions and working want career paths. They don't want the stigma. They want the skills, and they certainly don't want to have to be the one leading the way, telling everybody how it has to work. They just want to be normalized into the workforce, and everybody understands chronic conditions have this kind of pathway. It's also the case that people leaders need the skills to manage and work through this with people around capacity. I'm not talking limited capacity, that's a phase, but I'm talking about working in ways that work for the body. And all of the work we've done with corporates, people leaders know this. They're the ones asking, where's the manager's toolkit? They're the ones asking, how can I get this training? Because this is a leadership skill that people need at work, because it's 3 out of your 10 employees. It's not some imaginary thing that might happen in the future. It's live now. And I would see, Lilly, what you're building around the chronic media as fitting within this phase 3 of the tertiary sector. So that's the money, that's the phases, and it covers so many industries. And the reason I've started talking about it, because it shifts the narrative, it's not invisible. You're just not looking.
Ooh, that's a lot of information. And I'm so glad that you've shared this because people need to hear it. We need to get this mainstream because we are not a minority. It is not a small number of people living with chronic conditions. Unfortunately, in the US alone, it's estimated 60% or more. There is a market for this. There is money in this. And we need more people to engage, to build in this market because there are people here who need it. And to support and fund it. I want to see a VC firm that is committed to funding chronic conditions and chronic initiatives that are supporting this community. Many people with chronic conditions, and we talk about this a lot within Chronic Boss, is that we actually, and to your point, are overcompensating. We're actually working harder to prove ourselves, and it is burning us out. That's where the issues are. When you think about productivity, the quality of work that's coming out the door, right? This is actually something that is so valuable for people who aren't living with chronic conditions
100%.
either, right? Because we're also seeing, we know that autoimmune is triggered by stress and burnout and some of these other unfortunate results of work, people overworking, people pushing themselves to the point of burnout. That is not good for anyone's body. And so a lot of these tools that you're implementing would actually, I imagine, be very valuable for folks in the organization who don't have a chronic condition yet, let's say, because so many of us get one.
What happens for us with chronic condition is there's a benchmark. I call it the marathon employee, the marathon leader. Always fit, constantly on the go, outperforming everybody. That's kind of the benchmark for what everybody is supposed to move towards. And that capacity is like a really extreme capacity on one level. So now, not only do the chronic people have to have sustainability and optimization, everybody has to have sustainability and optimization in a workforce that is rapidly changing, is rapidly faster, and suddenly everybody is the chronic person in comparison to the AI implementation. And that is what is coming, and that makes this work. And everything that we do now, it's not just mainstream because of the numbers. It's actually the only way forward for everyone.
I want to transition us a little bit to talk about entrepreneurship because you're running chronic illness at work, and it's been so fascinating to hear about your lens, what's happening for people who are working in corporate America or Australia, if you will. I want to discuss ambition, but before we go there, I want to talk about relationships and entrepreneurship. And I'd like to know what inspired you to do that, because I think you do that with other folks who are working in our space. And do you recommend that other people do that as well with other founders?
It started with when I first went out after a couple of people had said yes for the first summit. It was for our 2023 summit where I was pivoting because everybody kept asking about career. So I moved away from everything with chronic illness to career. And you were about to build Chronic Boss. What was amazing about that is I had been in other communities and it was a lot of self-care, which is absolutely appropriate and super important. But I was interested in the career bit, and I knew that that was a huge part of our experience. It's a huge part of our community that is underserved and very much needed. What was beautiful about reaching out to you is we had exactly the same thing, the sort of conversation we're having here. I then joined Chronic Boss as a founding member, and the infrastructure of what you built in Chronic Boss, the accessibility, was perfect and beautiful. And I remember leaving you that voice note saying, oh my goodness, this is the best onboarding I've ever seen in any community. This is very easy to navigate what you're doing. I want to be there. I'm in it. I'm going to travel in it with you. I also remember with you when I was approached by a big USA pharma last year, and they wanted to run the career and chronic sessions across the American Autoimmune Association and a lot of other patient orgs. And I voice noted you and said, okay, I don't really know how to cost this. I've got an idea of what I'm doing. What do you know about this? And then you were generous in saying, look, I think it's not really what I do, but I've done this, and this is kind of the pricing. And then what was amazing about that, I put in a price for them, and I am very clear on pricing in the ecosystem. I put in what was sustainable for me to take time out of my business to do something for a patient org, which is not really my business. Fabulous opportunity, definitely want to do it, but it has to pay for itself. Turns out I put in a quote for the price, and it was twice what they had ever paid anybody else to do it. And so the communications person said, let me just go to them and check. They came back within 24 hours and said yes. What actually this teaches us is find the people who resonate with you, and that open-heartedness of generosity is going to lead you to build parallel. You're always going to have your own thing. The complexity is don't do it with somebody who's not in reciprocity with you, and don't do what I know you and I have also talked about is, hey, would love to connect and learn about everything you've done for a coffee. I want to do exactly what you've done. Can you give me your time and tips? That's not reciprocity, that's extraction. And what you and I've always done is share and be warm. And the opportunity is we both know that our businesses are still at the beginning, and we're one of, like, I would say 5 people in the market, and everybody pivots their business as they move. So definitely look for people. Chronic coaching has expanded. There's a lot of chronic coaches. So look for somebody who's got something interesting and also is at the level that you're starting. Don't look for the person who has exponentially built a business for 5 years and then go and ask them if you can collaborate with them without having something extremely unique that brings to the table that is actually nourishing for their business. And what you want to do is be in reciprocity, not extraction. And this happens across careers all the time, but that's how I would share about it.
I love that we have had this reciprocity and support of one another. And again, building in parallel paths, there's some overlap, but it is really nice to have somebody else who gets it really understands it, building in the chronic economy in this case. There are so few of us that it's nice to have somebody like you who can be there. And it has, to your point, it's been valuable for my business and it's been valuable for your business, and we champion each other. And I think that's really wonderful.
And so now we're talking about people who aren't in the chronic sector, who are coming for the business advice and how did you pioneer and how did you build it. I'm like, you're not even my people. I love you, but you're not my people. And so I set up to say, women who work with me, organizations come through chronic illness at work. Individual women come through career and chronic. You can come through digital programs, which is where we've taken all of the work I used to run in group programs. It's exactly the same work. And then I've put it in mini courses so that you can get those tips. And whether you're bed-based and not working, all the way through to what I call authentic leadership. Then you've got my flagship program, Ambition, that we run every year, and that's launching at the end of February. We'll have a big build-up. I know you and I are going to have a conversation as well, and this podcast is part of that. And so that is the group program, and then there's private to work with me. But for everybody else, it's like, I just set a price. I will clean up your business in an hour. What you will get in an hour is fast, hard, and clean, and you will get the distilled messages. And that requires a container where I'm in service of your business. That's not coffee. And so I called it the inner room and just created the cart, basically. That's what I did. And then put that on the post so that anybody who asks now, it's like, here's the cart. This is the opportunity.
This is important that we as leaders are modeling how to sustainably run your business.
The question you want to ask yourself is, what is the best use of me in the world? That's your defining question. The best use of me in the world is service to women with chronic illness. And then I have refined, like you, down into what that market looks like. There's another piece in this about building your business over time that I think is really important to talk about, because we share this as well. When I started, I was chronic coaching. I was still doing programs. I wasn't even doing private. And I built the content for that. And that was the journey. People kept asking me about career. And the first pivot I made is I had a woman come and ask me about working together. I was already running a program. She couldn't join the program. And so I had intuitively had the idea to just create a private cart. And then somebody turned up on a call and asked me about private. And then what I did was I take the work that was already running in groups. So if you work with me privately now, I mean, there's more content than you can imagine, but we cherry pick what's right for you. You still get the content, the worksheets, the strategy, the framework, and then we meet privately one-on-one. And in group, we meet as a group together. That business was the beginning. By now, I've got 2 companies plus the personal, the same as you do, of the speaking engagements and the brand that then goes with that. And I built a sustainable way to work. When I pivoted to career and chronic, again, I ran a group program, and everything has a framework. It downloads into me usually between 11 p.m. and 2 in the morning. That's just my creative time. But we built the emotional map first, which people can go and get right now. It's the very beginning. It's how to navigate things emotionally. We'll serve you like you wouldn't believe. We'll give you the links to put it. Then I built the career and chronic map, which is how to navigate the career. Again, you can go and get that map, 30 or 40-minute masterclass where I take you through it, and the workbook so you can work on it. All available, super accessible. So when I got to 2024 and the corporate work became very clear that we were going to do it, I did not want to do it. I did not want to work out how to talk to corporates about career and chronic illness. The problem I had is I'd worked out how to upskill individual women. I work out how to really transform their experience. The problem is the corporate needs the system change. Then I got the deal. I said we could do it. Then they said yes to the deal. And there's like, oh, okay. Now I have to present to 700 corporates about chronic illness at work. What is that? What do we say? It's not like, I always say it's not like mental health or even domestic violence where there's, really rich data, there's really rich ways, there's a language that everybody shares, everybody knows how to do it, and this is kind of how you talk about domestic violence. So I had to create an entire new way to speak about chronic illness at work for corporates that would honour the experience of all of us at work, but would also honour people, leaders and leaders who previously I might have had opinions about, but actually they were now my community as well. And so as you do all of these pieces, your business shifts and your identity shifts and transforms, and you become more expansive. And how do you do that in a sustainable way so that you are not the tyrant boss to yourself? And I think that's where we are, Lilly, is to just talk about how I manage my work and my day.
Yeah, it is. And I think that you've also made some decisions where you've made very intentional pricing decisions, like you said, to ensure that you're not only charging for your value, but you're charging so that you can show up and work sustainably and not burn yourself out. So I want to hear, how have you done that? How have you figured out the pricing? And what does your day-to-day look like to ensure that you're staying sustainable while running all of the things?
So my whole focus was to build an ecosystem in the business. I wanted to make sure if you are a woman with very small financial capacity at this point in time, that you can get access to almost everything, all the content and that without having to purchase or with it being a small purchase. But there's so much free content. There's 5 years of me talking. So there's 3 summits, which all sit within the Pajama Interviews podcast, which goes from that very beginning of navigating bed-based all the way through. And I talk about the emotional map so many times. You can listen to that, you'll get what you need. Then I was clear that to have a sustainable business, I needed to work in a way that I was financially solid and stable. And so what I did was build an ecosystem where there was a lot of free content. And then I did what we would call in the industry high ticket pricing. She was living in her parents. She was in about 46, 47, and she hadn't worked since she was 26. So this was a very long time. I offered her a much reduced price, but I still needed it to cover some costs. And my intuition was very clear. Offer her 50% reduction, still a huge amount of money. But that was what I could offer in my first program. She actually went, and her sister is phenomenal, and I've since met Christine when I was in the US. We connected as well. Her sister covered the cost of the program. Other women have done programs with me and had professional development through work or had won awards, and that money then funded them. And so what I learned in my business, and this is critical, is that the money will find its way if the woman is supposed to be working with you. Of course, I offered payment plans as well. And every program has a scholarship place. At 1 year, I advertised it. That was a mistake. So what happens now is it was a mistake because I had a whole lot of women hop on calls, which is fine. I opened it. I said there was a chronic scholarship place, but they weren't even a fit for the program, and you needed to kind of be a fit for the program and where you were at, as well as for the group, because in a group program, we're creating a group. It's not just whoever turns up. It has to be a group that will select themselves and work together. And so now I always offer a scholarship place, but nobody knows it. If you hop on a call, it may or may not be offered to you, and nobody else in the group knows who might have got a subsidized or completely free position. The way that I do that in the criteria, everybody thinks, what's the criteria? How does it work? I don't do it by the criteria. I listen to my intuition. And there are times where I've run programs, I'm like, is this the woman? Is this the one? Is this the one? And it's like, no. I was like, really? Really? She seems like she would be the right person. When you first started working with me, you worked with somebody who was coming out into the market. In terms of sustainability, I started with the same rule that I still run, and then I expanded it. I only work 3 client-facing days a week. Mondays is my privates. Wednesdays in Australia, which is Tuesday nights, is usually a group program. And then Thursday is always pajama day. Nothing happens on pajama day. That is just to lie down in bed, read, no business, nothing. That's just for your pajamas and you. And Friday is what I call professional development day. So if I'm taking PD, it'll often land on a Friday. If I'm having coffee meets with women I, want to connect with, and that will happen on a Friday. I might do some creative work. So that's how I structured from the very beginning. Tuesdays is often content production day, particularly if I'm doing a new course. That has worked. Women have instituted that. Does it mean that when I'm working creatively, there isn't a midnight creative? No. Does it mean that if I get the idea now, instead of writing it down, I just voice note it to chat and I'm done? That puts it to the side. This year, I instituted my absolute dream, which was the dream that I wanted to work when I first started. 1 week off a month, every month from the business. So I work 3 days a week, client-facing, other tinkering stuff, and 1 week off a month, no business.
Oh my God, how do you do that?
It's fun, isn't it? Isn't it fun? So how do I do that? No meetings get scheduled. All meetings are scheduled on the availability. They're not scheduled on others' availability. This is, I've got this time and this thing. Big Pharma, those meetings happened on my days. Corporate sessions, those meetings happen on my days. The 1 week off a month was my dream for what I wanted the business to deliver for me. So we ran last year our first ambition program, and every month in the modules we're working, there's an integration week. Actually, everybody needs an integration week. If I'm teaching you how to run your business and career and you've got weekly content, you need a week of downtime regardless. Women who've done that program started to then transition to reducing, particularly those who ran their business, not booking anything in the last week of the month for themselves either, and shifted their availability from 24/7, working 7 days, to only taking meetings the 3 days of the week. How does it look at work if this is your career? You can still look at, and we've had women who are in their careers in ambition do that, schedule out for next year, blocking off the time of availability around certain weeks of the year so that not just their leave is put in there, but actually that's a planning day for that person so that there is this quiet that is created. The business is built for sustainability. The executives I work for and with, they then implement sustainability because instead of going off the cliff, we're working right back at the beginning of all the decisions that led to the cliff, and we're planning 5 miles from the cliff what is sustainable, and that then cuts out all the other decisions that send you over the cliff.
My mind is just blown right now. What do you do for the week off? So you don't have meetings, but what about email? Like, what if somebody needs you?
Nobody needs me, Lily. Let's be clear. Because I'm not available. Who would need me? My business is set up. Nobody needs me.
So what if you were working with a pharma client during that time?
I say I'm not available next week.
I really need to take a page out of your book. Michelle, I thought that I had achieved, I'm on the road to achieving balance, but this is a whole new level. This is mind-blowing to me, and I feel like it's going to be mind-blowing to so many people. Okay, so now my question is, you have this ambition program, and it sounds like you're teaching women to do this. Like, women are now maybe taking weeks off. Do you have any Americans who are doing that yet?
Oh, yeah. So 80% of my clients are Americans. And so with American corporate culture, we do need to do something. Just having a woman not even just take 1 day off or 2 days off and getting those scheduled, that's one thing. The second thing is the key to sustainability is how can you do this in the most easeful way? That is not a concept that ease is like as if it's a shameful, like, what do you mean I'm not working hard? I've got everything done. Like, I've got to really burn myself through. That's the culture. And it didn't actually used to be that way in America. It's like companies used to take care of employees. There was a social contract between companies and employees. But now it's hyper-capitalism and employees are widgets. And so the production is really about what do you produce? So what do we do for American women? How can this be more easeful? You can still organize your diary and the meetings, and you think that you can't. You think that you can't say no. You think that you're at the mercy of this. I will teach you how to say no and do it in a way that actually protects your reputation and career. People don't read your words. They read your energy. Maybe there's an apology sitting there and people are like, that's not a no. Great, she'll do it. When you say,
That's me.
yeah, that's a, do I have permission to say no? People read the energy. It's like, oh, she's not a no, we'll go around it. What I did with, say, pharma, the US pharma, is I put in the contract literally the availability times for meetings and for the session times. So they had to start at 5:30 p.m. till 8 p.m. or whatever, which was good for the sessions. It was career and chronic. But all the meetings were held at either 5 or 5:30 p.m. because that was the availability in the contract. Do not for one moment think that I was some bigwig talking to a huge pharma company as if clearly they're just going to do it. No, I just put it in the terms and I just said that's my availability. It's simple. I didn't say, that is my availability and, really defensive and you can't, and your boundaries and like, no, I wasn't aggressive. It's just like, I'm available here. Clean, clear community.
Michelle, you are a wizard of work. This is crazy. Okay, so tell us now. So this is one of the things that people can expect to learn in Ambition, which I would say is pretty elite. Like I would sign up today based on just that information alone. But what other frameworks can women expect to learn if they enroll in Ambition, which is going to be coming up very soon?
So here's what I built. Once I built the career and chronic framework, I was like, done, good, we got all the creativity. Then I built the chronic illness at work. It's like, done, good, got the creativity. And then it was like, oh, now women are coming to me and want to work really in their deepest ambition. And they don't know how to do that for all the reasons we've just discussed. So I built a new framework based on how that I work and the psychology of it that then delivers for you practically in the world. And there are 5 key stages of authentic ambition. You have to be able to dream it. Chronic illness will cut down your dreaming or eradicate it, and it will feel too painful to hope. So the first thing is we have a whole process where it's spacious to do the dreaming and it's what is actually the best use of you in the world and what is in your soul that you think you cannot do. I will help you work out how to do that. So you have to dream it. The second phase, which is exactly what you and I have been talking about, Lilly, is you have to then value you in your time, your energy, and your remuneration. If you move from dreaming to action without valuing it, you will end up with an unsustainable model. And you will sacrifice yourself, not just for everybody else, but for the vision of the business. You will sacrifice yourself. So you have to dream it, value it. The third phase is you have to action it, and you have to have clarity of doing that in motion in your day. And that is a critical piece that comes after the first two. That is not the end of the story. Then you have to live it. So now you have to see and live what you dreamed, what you valued, what you actioned, and then you have to refine it. Because you will end up with some tweaks and going, yeah, I thought it was going to do this, but now that I'm living it every day, it is not helpful. We need to shift it. And then after all of those 4 stages, you expand it. And that's your authentic ambition framework. What we do in the program is teach you how to do all of those things practically. So if your dream is to optimize and have sustainable work, you might put less meetings. That might be your biggest vision for your work. I'm going to come in and say, let's see, just in the dreaming, don't have to action it. I know you don't think anybody will do it. How can we restructure that? If you're a consultant, you're billable by hours. I've worked with consultants, executives, women running their own business, doesn't have to be in the chronic economy. I will help you work out how to have the dream that is in your heart that you won't even speak to because it's so tightly locked down and appropriately for what the culture has told you. The second thing is terms of value is about the ecosystem of what you paid. Most women will underpay themselves in time, energy, or money, and usually all three. In my business, the ecosystem is you can get a lot for free. You can hear me on a podcast. There's heaps of them to hear. You can come in and access the emotional map for $7, the career map for $14. You can take a digital program for $333. Then you can take a group program and then you can work with me privately. So there's a place for you at all of the system. And it is the same with you in your career. What you think is the standard of your remuneration, there are so many other things you can negotiate apart from financials. And it's most likely that you're being paid less than the men anyway. So that valuing is critical so you protect your time. The final piece I'll talk about in terms of clarity and motion is everybody's like, okay, let's get the action. Let's strategize it. These are all the system. If you build from what you have previously built in action, you will burn yourself out. It's the same system. You need a perspective shift. Mostly what people build their careers, their money, their life, their finances out of is pure survival. And that is, what do I have to give somebody to get to survive for my housing, my food, etc.? I have to give everything. There are times where in chronic illness you are in survival. But most people in their business, in their career, are treating the business as if it's survival, are treating the organization as if it's survival, and you are not in survival. You're usually in shared collaboration around the work. And then there's the part where what's the best use of you. And if you're up at the third perspective of what the best use of you is, that totally transforms the work you do, even in the same role. And then the fourth stage of perception is what is the greatest vision of my contribution? And who am I collaborating with for my contribution? That opens your ecosystem within the industry. And if you're running a business, that opens your ecosystem with clients. So those are some of the things we work through, as well as a one-on-one monthly with me, where we work towards the 6 goals you have set over the 6 months for your dream life.
Oh, sign me up, Michelle. I thought I had it all figured out, but now I feel like I maybe need to go back to the drawing board with you. I agree. There are so many women who are undervaluing themselves. One of the big pieces of advice that I give when I'm coaching or when we're masterminding with chronic bosses is around consulting and how so many women are charging hourly when actually they should be charging a retainer. They should be charging a monthly retainer or a project fee, because something that they could do in an hour could be worth thousands and thousands of dollars to a company, and not the $200 or $300 an hour that they're charging. So it's something that I think there needs to be a lot more conversations around pricing. You've done a great job modeling that. I love that you're helping these women draw out what's on their hearts and helping them shoot for the stars and do it in a way that's sustainable. You have such a way about you that makes people feel comfortable and safe. And I encourage folks to definitely go check out the program. It's called Ambition. Check out the series that you're running over the next couple of weeks on ambitious women in chronic conditions.
Yeah, we're running a series. It's 3 panels, completely free, chronic career leadership. And we've got some phenomenal women, including Lilly. We're going to talk about that in much more detail. It all starts February 3rd.
Well, we hope to see you all there. So, Michelle, this has been such a fruitful, beautiful, visionary conversation as expected. What does being a chronic boss mean to you?
Optimize sustainability. As simple as that. Optimize sustainability. That is everything for your own sense of well-being across financial, physical, creative relationships.
You are the ultimate champion of women and women who are living with chronic conditions and have that ambition in their heart. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. I am such a fangirl, and I can't wait to watch you continue to soar and grow your businesses over the next couple of years, and for us to keep pioneering in this chronic economy.
Thanks so much for having me, Lily, and sharing your platform.
Thanks, Michelle.